Hi, welcome to the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement Podcast. I'm Mark Graben, your host and a senior advisor with KaiNexus. Today, very happy to be joined by Jeff Roussel. He is our Chief Revenue Officer. Jeff, how's it going?
Hello, thanks, Mark. Appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you again. And I know one thing maybe to start off with is that I know you reached another anniversary with the company, 11 years, right?
I did. Yep. I like to tell people it's the longest that I've ever held a job. I think when you join a job, you never really think 11 years into the future to see how things are going. But I tell you, I'm still as excited as ever to be doing what we're doing, and I'm looking forward to the next 11 years.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're still part of the team. You've contributed, so much to the growth and I don't know if maturation. We're still maturing. I mean, we're still growing, and there's a lot going on, right?
I still think of us as a gangly teenager. Maybe I always will.
Some of us aren't as gangly as we used to be, but yeah. But when you joined us, Jeff, I'm pretty sure your title was VP of Sales. So maybe one thing just to ask you to reflect on a little bit is how your role has evolved over time. And
yeah, that's a great title. Yeah. That's really I never even gave it much thought that it had changed. I'm not a titles guy, mm-hmm. but when I first joined, I was very focused on just kind of driving sales. It was a necessary part of any business is to make sure that you figure out the right way to attract and identify and attract the types of organizations that you're most likely going to be able to help. Over time, that role has expanded to include oversight in our marketing efforts, which are really pretty close to our sales efforts. They usually happen before we make direct contact mm-hmm. with an organization. But then also after our sale, we have a very in-depth investment in customer experience. And so we want our customers to maintain connected and aligned with us throughout their entire kind of life cycle of using KaiNexus. And our customer experience group does that. And so the way I think of it is the more that we can put one cohesive strategy in place in those three areas, then the better value we'll be able to bring to our customers. And so that's what I focus on. And then I'll tell you, Mark, I think I have enjoyed my expanded role focusing on our internal culture as much as anything. It's something I care a lot about. It's something that's hard, but also very rewarding to manage. And so I see that as kind of part of my role also.
Yeah. And I know that's something KaiNexus and you and other senior leaders have been really intentional about over time. And one of those things, and I think we're going to do a future episode talking more about things like values and behaviors and leading in that way. But let me ask you today to dig in. You talk about necessary parts of any business. Most organizations would say, well, sales and marketing are necessary parts of the business. I think, you and I and others at KaiNexus and our customers share a belief that continuous improvement, operational excellence, however you frame it, is also a necessary part of any business. But you talk to a lot of organizations where there's, I guess, degrees of, different degrees of how strongly held that belief is across organizations.
Yeah, I tell you, I go back to the basics with this all the time. I think it's a super interesting point. We believe a lot in the concept of people, process, and technology being the three legs of the stool if you're going to make any sort of lasting change stick within an organization. And right. If you pull out any one of those legs, then things kind of get off balance. And to me, on the people side, it's really around the leadership behaviors that you choose and invest in. And commitment sits at the top of that list. And so I've seen personally that the organizations that are most committed to operational excellence, well, they have the best outcomes
Yeah.
from their operational excellence program. But I also think that's the hardest thing. I mean, anytime there's a leadership change within an organization, that commitment can sometimes ebb and flow a little bit. But I think it's a really important piece of it. You know, what does that say? You have to say who you want to be before you can become that person. I think it's the same with organizations. The ones who state that they want to be excellent at improving themselves, well, then they are excellent, or they become excellent at improving themselves. But that commitment comes first. It doesn't come second. It's certainly something that I hope KaiNexus is able to help affect and change within our customers. When there isn't that kind of full force commitment, hopefully our platform can provide enough visibility and explain impact well enough where it allows the executives at our customers to make a deeper commitment to their operational excellence journeys.
Yeah. There's, I think, a lot of self-fulfilling prophecy one way or another, like expressing a belief in that operational excellence is critically important to the organization doesn't mean that it becomes easy or that it's automatic, but that statement of belief is an important first step. And then I think there's a related belief when leaders truly believe and remind or tell everyone in the organization that every one of you has a role to play in continuous improvement, you're more likely to get close to everybody participating. And I think of great leaders who express that commitment and they mean it and they help people work toward it. I think of Dr. Eric Dixon at UMass Memorial Health. I've known Dr. Dixon almost 15 years. And, he expresses that belief the way other, great operational excellence, lean, what have you, CEOs have. They share that belief and they help the organization move in that direction. I mean, you get exposure to other leaders who share and state that belief, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think another great example is Brian Dieter at Mary Greeley Medical Center. I know Brian. One of the things that stood out to me years and years ago was that participation in their continuous improvement journey was part of their job descriptions. Like it was important enough that it was written into a job description. I think it's easy to state that belief and that commitment, but certainly we see it a lot in the actions of the leaders. If they're willing to hold themselves and their managers accountable to day-to-day participation in operational excellence, well, then they can overcome some of the inevitable roadblocks that arise. But if they just talk about it and pay a lip service, but they're not willing to actually do it themselves or hold managers accountable to results around it, well, then it doesn't take much for the program to fall on hard times. And so the commitment's huge, but you can't just talk about the commitment. You've got to really have the belief and the commitment that it's going to make a difference within an organization.
Yeah. And, Mary Greeley Medical Center, a couple of years ago, winner of the Baldrige National Quality Award, quite an accomplishment for them. And there are manufacturing leaders and other business leaders in our customer base, thankfully, who share that belief and that commitment to the action, that follows the words. So Jeff, maybe one last question for you, because a lot of people in the audience are KaiNexus customers and might be some of the key champions at different organizations. What general advice would you give to KaiNexus champions that might be listening?
Oh, yeah, good question. So I'm gonna take this in a bit of a business direction and less of a kind of continuous improvement direction. I think I've seen now examples throughout the years where you really can't take a break from describing the results of your operational excellence or your continuous improvement efforts in business terms. It's extremely important that organizations continue to redefine the business case of their time and their money that they're investing in this process. I love continuous improvement. And so just philosophically, I think every organization should do it. But I'm enough of a business person to know that there has to be a bottom line impact to this type of an effort, or else why do it? We're all in business to be in business. Even our healthcare customers have financial goals and financial requirements on their organization. And I think there's a way that you can tie this back to making it more likely that you achieve the goals that you've set out for yourself as an organization. Making it a better place for your employees to work has a direct impact on turnover rates. And, there's certainly dozens of studies out there that'll show how you can tie better outcomes to the work that you're doing. It is just very important that organizations keep a focus on that and figure out what their business impact is, because, at some point, somebody's going to ask the question, why are we doing this? And if you've got that answer at hand, it's so much easier to answer that question.
Yeah. And what I've seen is, just building on what you're saying, being able to talk about results and not just activity, I think is really key. I mean, tracking activity matters. The activity might be a leading metric of, how much participation, how many people are participating. But, I think we see, people working on the range of like, well, here's the things that bother me. I want to work on these. And then here are the strategic imperatives of the organization. And I think those motivations can coexist and actually strengthen each other.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think, look, if you're advanced enough as an organization where you've chosen your goals, you've chosen your pillars, the KPIs that are going to drive your organization forward, then I would just recommend that you have a mechanism of tying back the improvement work you're doing to those goals. So at the end of the day, what you've done to contribute to the forward direction of an organization. And I think it sometimes is an overlooked component, especially in the CI world where people are zealots. They care about continuous improvement just for the sake of continuous improvement. And I love that. Like, I really do. But we've got to be realists here too. And we've got to be able to kind of talk the business talk around this, because otherwise it just makes it a much more difficult process.
Yeah. I think it's really well said. So I think we'll wrap it up on that note. So again, joining us today, Jeff Roussel, Chief Revenue Officer with KaiNexus. Thanks for sharing insights, and hopefully we'll get to do this more often.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. Thank you for your continued passion around just the mission of spreading continuous improvement. So I really appreciate all that you do, Mark.
Oh, thanks.